The California sun beat down on the asphalt of Camp Pendleton's Bravo Parade Field, casting long, sharp shadows across the perfectly arranged Marine formations. It was one of the rare days the base was open to the public, allowing civilians to catch a glimpse of the ceremonial side of Marine Corps life, with its polished boots, sharp turns, and shooting drills choreographed with military precision. It was a sight of order, tradition, and discipline, and Cole Maddox hated every second of it. Standing at the edge of the crowd, his arms folded across his broad chest, Cole stood out like a sore thumb. While most of the attendees wore baseball caps and shorts, Cole wore his signature sleek black tracksuit with yellow stripes. He wore tinted sunglasses despite being in the shade, and a custom-made necklace with a wolf head pendant glinted in the Southern California light. Cole, 32, undefeated in the octagon and a 3-time reigning MMA world champion, wasn't there out of patriotism. He was there for a film crew he'd hired to shoot a new documentary, Combat Culture, Real Fighters versus Fake Traditions. The idea? Test the philosophies of martial arts against so-called ceremonial soldiers and expose those who were truly ready to fight. In his mind, the Marines were just another test of dominance. "Look at that guy," he muttered to his entourage, nodding toward one of the honor guards standing at the parade ground in his blue uniform. "Stiff. You call that readiness?" The Marine he was referring to was Corporal Diego Ramirez. His skin was dark, his teeth clenched, his eyes staring straight ahead beneath the white barracks tarp. His white gloves held the M1 Garand straight to his chest. Not a muscle moved, not even when a fly landed on his collar. Cole scoffed. "Statues with guns?" he added with a chuckle. "Let's see what happens when real pressure is applied." His team laughed, 4 devoted followers of the Predator combat system, each wearing matching jackets. They were former wrestlers, strikers, jiu-jitsu champions, fighters who lived by Cole's motto, dominate, perform, dismantle. One of them leaned forward, smirking. "I bet he's never thrown a punch outside of training." "Exactly," Cole nodded, cracking. "He's trained to parade and look good, but in a real fight?" He snapped his fingers. "Done." The energy around them shifted. A few nearby civilians began to inch away. Some whispered. Others raised their phones, recognizing the MMA star from viral fight clips. No one was sure what was about to happen, but it was clear something was afoot. Cole took a few steps forward, ignoring the restricted area fence and the faint calls from a base officer to stay behind. He stared at Corporal Ramirez. His stride was calm, fierce. From around the corner, Sergeant Everett, an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran, noticed the movement and frowned. He'd seen that stance before, in barroom brawls, in prison yards, in back-alley confrontations where too much testosterone met too little wisdom, but he was too far away to intervene. And Cole spoke up. "You know what's wrong with the military?" Cole said to the watching crowd. "Too much tradition. Not enough evolution." Then, with the camera rolling, he pointed at Ramirez like a man challenging a statue to a duel. "Here? This isn't fighting, this is cosplay." The Marine didn't move. Cole grinned. "Fix that." And with that, the world watched as the arrogance marched straight into the realm of discipline, unaware that he had just entered a battlefield where the rules were written in blood, not fanfare. For a long moment, no one moved. Cole Maddox stood just a few feet from Corporal Diego Ramirez, staring at him like a lion circling its prey. The Marine remained motionless, his stance statuesque, his eyes fixed straight ahead as if the booing, the presence of the camera, the ridicule did not exist. Cole began to circle him slowly, his arms hanging loosely, his body relaxed, the way predators always do before they make a kill. "You know," he said, addressing the crowd, "in cages, we're trained to deal with real threats. We don't stand around pretending. We don't freeze like mannequins. We move. We adapt." The crowd fell into an uncomfortable silence as the MMA champion circled the Marines. Some civilians pulled out their phones to record. Others whispered, unsure whether to laugh or call security. A mother quietly pulled her child away. A few nearby Marines shifted their weight, tense but unsure how far this would go. "Tell me, Ramirez," Cole continued to taunt, "did they even teach you how to take a hit with those nice white gloves of yours?" Still no response. Cole laughed, stepping closer. "Man, that was embarrassing." He threw a quick punch, just missing, that stopped an inch from the Marine's face. The crowd gasped. Ramirez didn't even blink. Cole tilted his head. Oh, was that fear? Or was it just good acting? Then, without warning, Cole reached out and lightly slapped Ramirez across the face. The blow wasn't hard, not by professional standards, but it was beyond the point. The moment froze. Ramirez, however, didn't flinch. The Marine followed the motion, then turned back to center. Eyes forward, unwavering. Cole raised his hand and turned to the crowd with a mocking smile. "Seek," I said. "Statue." He barely had time to blink, and then the rifle fell to the ground with a clang. It didn't fall, it was set down, deliberately, like a pilot setting his headphones aside before war. Corporal Ramirez turned to face Cole, and as he did, the atmosphere changed instantly. His body language changed. His muscles were flexed, not like a man about to fight, but like a man about to finish a fight. Cole?" One of his teammates called out nervously from behind the camera. "You might want to." But it was too late. In one smooth motion, Ramirez stepped forward. There was no threat in his eyes, no rage, just calm. Cole reflexively lowered himself into his fighting stance. "We're talking now," he said with a smirk, though the smile didn't reach his eyes. Something was wrong here. Something was different. Ramirez didn't pose. He didn't pretend. He moved with the efficiency of someone who had spent years not in the gym, but in sand and blood. His first strike was clean, sharp, and brutally effective, a textbook body blow that bypassed Cole's defenses and knocked the air from his lungs. Cole stumbled, blinking in confusion. The Marine didn't stop. He stepped inside again, low, hard, and swept Cole's legs in a move almost too quick to follow. The MMA champion fell to the ground with a loud thud, dust flying from the impact. Ramirez was on him immediately, knee to sternum, pinning him down with ease. Cole fought back, twisting, trying to get away, but every move was met with subtle, precise adjustments. It wasn't flashy. It was real. "Get down," Ramirez said softly, not angry, just authority. And for the first time in a long time, Cole Maddox obeyed, not because he was out of breath or proud, but because something in the Marine's eyes told him this was no longer a show. This was a message, and he had just become an example. For several long seconds, no one moved. Cole Maddox lay on his back, pinned under the weight of a Marine trained not to perform, but to survive. Ramirez knelt over him, not pressing hard, just enough to keep him from rising. It wasn't a chokehold. It wasn't a punch. It was control, perfect, practiced control. And Cole knew it. The crowd around them backed away. Phones were raised, mouths agape. People who had been laughing a few minutes ago stared in stunned silence. The base staff froze, unsure whether to intervene or just let reality take its course. "Cole," one of his men called, stepping forward. "You okay?" Ramirez turned his head slightly. Just a glance. The man stopped abruptly. From across the field, Sergeant Everett strode in, his combat coat pulled low over his eyes, his uniform pressed despite the heat. His posture radiated radiant authority, the kind of authority acquired over decades, not borrowed from YouTube clips. But before Everett could speak, a member of Cole's crew, a big man with a broken nose and cauliflower ears, stepped into his path. "Just a little protest, old man," the warrior said with a smirk. "Education." Everett didn't stop. He swept past the man with a cold command that made the Marines instinctively stand straighter. "Move," he said firmly. The warrior moved. Everett stepped into the impromptu circle, his eyes scanning the scene, Cole on the ground, Ramirez calm and controlled, the crowd holding its breath. He didn't say anything. "The man you just despised," he said, looking down at Cole, "has done things you won't live long enough to brag about." Cole's chest heaved, trying to catch his breath. "I don't know." "No, you don't," Everett said. "Because you think discipline means weakness. That silence means inexperience. That uniforms are for decoration." He made a motion to change. Ramirez released the pressure and rose with a smooth, steady movement, returning to his marching rest as if nothing had happened. The dust on his blue suit was the only visible sign that anything had happened. Cole sat up slowly, coughing, brushing the dust off his sleeves. His voice was quieter now. "He's not just a ceremonial guy, is he?" Everett raised an eyebrow. "Ramirez? He's a Special Forces qualified. 3 tours overseas, doorbreaker in Fallujah, scout sniper in Mosul, close combat instructor at Quantico, Bronze Star with Valor." He paused. "And yes, also trained to stand perfectly still in full uniform in 110-degree heat for hours without flinching, because that's what Marines do. They adapt." Cole looked around, now viewing the crowd through a different lens. This wasn't just a show. He had turned someone's place of honor into a self-indulgent ride. His jaw clenched. The pain in his ribs was real. But not as real as the humiliation that was hitting him now. Everett squatted down a little, lowering his voice so only Cole could hear. You think you're tough because you take someone down in front of a crowd? Try standing your ground while your comrades bleed out next to you. Try standing still while drones track your position. Try keeping your head while civilians scream and mortars fall. He straightened. Your fight ends when the referee comes in. Our fight ends when we go home, if we're lucky. Cole nodded slowly. Ramirez said nothing. He didn't need to. Because in the muddy dirt of Bravo Field, under the judgment of 24 onlookers, Cole Maddox learned what every Marine knows. Fighting isn't about show. It's about ending. They moved Cole Maddox to a shaded bench near the reviewing stand. His designer tracksuit was torn at the elbow, his sunglasses cracked, and the smug confidence he had arrived with was gone, stripped from him not by injury, but by understanding. What had started as a viral stunt had turned into a very public reckoning. Ramirez stood silently in the background, back in his position, his face impassive. The cut on his cheek, caused by Cole's earlier slap, had dried into a faint streak of blood, a crimson line against discipline. He held his rifle once more, standing tall, unwavering, as if nothing had happened. But something had. Everyone watching knew it. Master Sergeant Everett stood nearby, arms crossed. The media crew had stopped filming. Even they felt that line had been crossed. What was happening now wasn't content. It was consequence. One of Cole's teammates approached the bench. You all right, man? Cole didn't answer right away. His eyes were locked on Ramirez. That wasn't just muscle memory, Cole muttered finally. That was something else. He dropped you like it was his morning routine, the teammate muttered, trying to lighten the mood. But Cole wasn't hearing jokes. He was doing math in his head, the kind every fighter knows instinctively. Speed, weight, balance, precision. He'd seen special operators train before, even sparred with a few Navy SEALs for PR events. But none had moved like Ramirez. None had read him like Ramirez had. Everett spoke without turning. He didn't drop you to humiliate you. He dropped you to stop you. One difference. Cole exhaled. It was efficient, like a machine. Not a machine, Everett said. A Marine. A pause. Then Everett turned toward the gathered crowd, now quiet and respectfully distanced. He cleared his throat, not to make a speech, but to explain something no viral clip ever would. What you saw wasn't a fight, he began. It was a demonstration. Of restraint, of training, of what it takes to serve something bigger than yourself. He looked directly at Cole. Because combat isn't about how many people you've beaten, it's about how many you've protected. It's not about dominance, it's about responsibility. He let that sit for a moment. Let me tell you something about Corporal Ramirez. 2 years ago, he and a 6-man recon team were ambushed outside of Kandahar. No air support, no QRF, just sand, fire, and chaos. He pulled 2 of his guys out under direct mortar fire, one of them shot in the neck, applied field trauma care with one hand while suppressing with the other, held their position for 4 hours before evac. They gave him the Bronze Star. Cole slowly looked up. And now he stands here, Everett added, gesturing toward the parade field. Because the Marines rotate ceremonial duty among combat-tested units. Because honor isn't something you hang on a wall. It's something you wear, even when no one claps. Someone in the crowd began to applaud, but stopped after a single clap, realizing this wasn't the moment for it. Everett approached Cole, his voice low again. You came here looking to expose something. Congratulations, you did. Cole's jaw clenched. I don't want to go viral for this, he said, finally. Everett gave a small nod. Then make it right. A short while later, inside the base's administrative office, Cole sat alone in a small room with plain beige walls and a single desk between him and the door. Gone was the swagger. Gone was the performative charm. All that remained was a man who'd been brought face to face with something his world didn't train him for. Respect earned in silence. The door opened. Corporal Ramirez entered, not in ceremonial blues, but in standard fatigues. Clean, pressed, professional. He closed the door behind him and stood across from Cole. Cole rose to his feet. Thank you for coming. Ramirez gave a simple nod. I asked them to let me speak to you, Cole said. I don't expect forgiveness, But I do need to say this. Ramirez didn't move, didn't respond, he simply let the man talk. I came here thinking I was the better man, Cole said. I've trained with world-class athletes, broken jaws in 3 continents. I thought strength came from dominance, what you could prove. But when I hit you, and you didn't even blink, that shook me. He paused. When you dropped me, I wasn't scared. I was humbled. Still, Ramirez said nothing. You moved like someone who's been there, like someone who's lost friends, who knows what chaos really feels like. And I disrespected that. I treated your silence like weakness, when it was the loudest statement in the field. Finally, Ramirez spoke. You weren't the first. Cole blinked. Ramirez stepped closer, his tone calm but firm. Every month, we get a civilian who thinks the uniform's for show, who thinks standing still is easy. That precision means softness. And every month, we remember that we're not here to impress them. We're here to represent those who never came back. His eyes locked onto Cole's. You didn't just hit me, you hit what I stand for. The words weren't angry, they were measured, and they cut deeper than any punch ever could. Cole lowered his gaze. I'm sorry, truly, not just for the kick, for everything before it. There was silence. Then Ramirez gave a small nod. No smile, no handshake, just acknowledgement. I accept your apology. Doesn't change what happened, but it says something. Cole exhaled. It felt like the first real breath he'd taken since he stepped onto the field. Before Ramirez left, Cole asked one final question. When I hit you, most men would have gone down. You didn't even flinch. How? Ramirez paused at the door. I've had RPGs miss me by inches. Watched friends bleed out beside me. You don't shake a man like that with a kick. You just remind him why stillness matters. Then he was gone, and Cole Maddox, for the first time in his career, didn't feel like the apex predator. He felt like a student, one lucky enough to have learned something before it was too late. The next morning, the skies over Camp Pendleton were overcast, casting a soft gray hue over the parade grounds. The heat had broken overnight, replaced by a gentle breeze and the smell of ocean salt drifting in from the Pacific. It was quiet, too quiet for a military base, but perhaps that was fitting. Cole Maddox stood just beyond the viewing area again. This time there were no cameras, no entourage, no designer tracksuit. He wore jeans, a plain black t-shirt, and sunglasses he didn't really need. In his hands was a small duffel bag. Inside, his championship belt, unworn, unopened. Across the field, he watched as a fresh honor guard formed ranks, moving into position with mechanical precision. At the center of it all stood Corporal Diego Ramirez, back in full ceremonial dress blues, every detail immaculate. His white gloves held the M1 Garand with reverent exactness. His posture was steel. There was no visible trace of the confrontation the day before. The cut on his cheek had been cleaned, the dust on his uniform long gone. But the weight of what had happened lingered, especially for Cole. The crowd began to arrive, tourists, veterans, families. They took their photos respectfully now, staying behind the lines, speaking in softer tones. No one taunted, no one tested. Something had changed. As the ceremony commenced, a small girl, maybe 10, tugged on her father's sleeve near the front of the crowd. "Daddy," she whispered, "are those guys real soldiers or just for show?" Before the father could respond, a deep voice from behind answered, "They're both, and neither, they're Marines." It was Cole. The father turned, surprised, recognizing him. But Cole simply smiled, gently guiding the child's eyes back to the field. "You see that man in the middle? The one who hasn't moved an inch?" She nodded. "He's done things most of us can't imagine, and the reason he stands so still now is because he doesn't have to prove it anymore." The girl looked up at him with wide eyes. "Were you in the military too?" Cole hesitated, then shook his head. "No, but yesterday I got a lesson I'll never forget." The national anthem began to play, and all conversation stopped. Cole removed his sunglasses. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the need to be seen. He simply stood, with his hand over his heart, eyes locked on the Marines in formation. And for a moment, he understood something fundamental. Victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it stands motionless. Sometimes it bleeds silently. Sometimes it doesn't need to fight at all, because it's already won long before the battle begins. As the final note of the anthem faded, Cole turned to leave. The duffel bag remained slung over his shoulder, but the weight no longer came from the championship belt inside. It came from something heavier. respect. If this story has made you rethink the true meaning of strength and discipline, leave a comment below. Have you ever seen calmness mistaken for weakness? Would you have acted differently if you were cold? Don't forget to like if you feel this story deserves to be shared. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more real, profound, and deeply human stories like this. And hit the notification bell, because memorable stories often come when you least expect them. Finally, share this video with your friends, family, who need to remember, true strength doesn't always require applause. Sometimes it just requires a proud silence.